Um, so I will continue to talk about overcoming the damage done by Whitehorse Christian Center specifically, because I think this is going to be like specific to this ministry, because I can't really speak for all ministries. But before I do that, um, I left that ministry. Excuse me. Um, in a rush, because what he instigated was so surprising, and what I had been through with that group of people was so scarring. I just like ran back to my hometown. What transpired then, and what the entire purpose of Whitehorse really was, what I think is what I see and what eventually happened, was to literally leave me without a place to stay. And there were men waiting to probably either make me become a stripper or some kind of like sex trafficking or something. It was really weird. Once I got to the campus, there were white males there that were like, they had seen me on campus, like because of the church group's presence, pressure, abusive patterns, they were not going to employ me. And so I left my hometown because of issues with, within my home. My mom was hitting me, and so I don't hit back, and I did not want to allow for any of that before again, because again I worked at a facility for emotionally challenged like teenagers, and we would restrain those kids that made like physical contact. And so my mom might be narcissistic. She's like an instigator. She likes to argue. She likes to fight. She likes to yell fight. She taught my sister to be like a screaming, hollering, yelling, fighting girl. In my life, my dad was that, and I didn't have to be. And so I always had a very peaceful, like, existence. So I got back here, and for example, my sister was upset with me because I wouldn't do something that they wanted, how they wanted to. I have my own reasons for certain things I do and don't do. Like, I don't care what you say. Like, there's just certain things I won't do because I've already usually probably tried it, and there's something about it that had a detrimental result, and so I won't go on that path again. Even if you think it's the path I should go on, you take your ass on that path. And for whatever reason, now think about this, and this is what I return to. My little sister's significant other was from an orphan background, but he had a grandfather, so he's not technically totally orphaned. So this grandfather kind of raised them, and he kind of raised himself. But a lot of my interaction with this young man was him complaining about his foster families and telling me horrible stories of the horrible things that they would do, only to meet these foster members, and they weren't as bad as I was told, and they had their own stories about how this young man just was unruly, and he just couldn't do anything he wanted to do. Go to these years, Corliss has had problems with the church. Jerry, his name, has like taken over the role of the leader of your mom and your sister. And one of the things he says is, get out of your emotions. You get out of your emotions. So he teaches them to not be in reality with reality. And he does and has really effed up things happen all the time. And it's almost like watching a really bad program run, where the person that runs the program never gets their just desserts, but everybody around them seems to lose face all the time. And so after watching this, I was like, there's something volatile and parasitic about your relationship with my sister and my mom, and it always makes them look really bad. and you make them look as though they don't care for their kids. Like my sister doesn't care for her daughters, and it makes it look like my mom is incompetent in caring for your daughters, but somehow you're always like a person that catches all these mistakes of my mom and my sister. And it's like I feel as though you degrade them all the time. So I don't trust you, and I don't really like what I see. And so when I see stuff like that, I'll just shut you down. Like, and I won't allow you, if I see it cyclically, to do that. And so I would shut him down by like not letting him talk, because my mom would get so frustrated. She'd be on the verge of tears. She loves my nieces, and same with my sister. And when we shut him down, it stopped happening. And so he was like igniting or catalyzing this horrible, like, parasite of a, of a program that made him look good all the time. And everything around him, even what happened to the babies, were horrible things. And the babies would do weird things, and they would behave really negatively towards one another, and they just couldn't get along. But that wasn't always the case. But when he was around, it was consistently the case. And so I know there are people that can have those things manifest around them. And so what happened is, when I was on my knees literally before them, because I had nothing, because of this white man and his group of people were like, well, if I can't have you, no one can. And that's what these cult leaders will play. They will say, well, if you won't take my ministry, then I'll just make you kill yourself. Or if you don't accept my ministry, then I'm just going to make you kill yourself. I'll just destroy you financially, I'll destroy you psychologically, I'll destroy you professionally, and then, I'll destroy you, and then I'll act like I helped rebuild you. That is a narcissistic cycle, and you can look up some videos by Sam Vaknin, Vaknin, and he explains the Hoover pattern of narcissistic abuse, in which a narcissist will go and, like, you'll have a relationship with them where they'll destroy you, and then you come back to them for validation, and they destroy you, and then you come back to them for validation. And a lot of cults do this, and like, you don't notice it. You just think, especially if there's like a triangular, like a tripart connection to this person, where, for example, it's you, that person, and another entity, for example, God or Jesus or your church, then they'll use the church to bolster that relationship so they can be that parasite towards you. So anyway, Pastor Jeff is parasitic like that, where he will pull people back, and he'll want their testimony, even if he's the one that destroyed part of the ministry or something. And so I wasn't playing that, and so I just would not accept their help, and I asked for the help from individuals that I trusted, and that left me without, literally, it has left me without anything, because it ended up being like white men. And from what this pastor's told me, he destroys people's something, I can't remember what he connects to, but he was like, oh well, I got this building, I told these men about the price that I wanted, and they wouldn't give it to me for that price. And so whatever I did, I made sure that I made them something that happened to them was so detrimental. They came to my office on their knees, and I was like, who are you that people need to come to your office on their knees? Are you God? I was like, that is a sign of narcissism if I've never seen one. And so I know I'm dealing with a very narcissistic man. And so I went back to the home that was offered with Jerry and my sister. And because of that place, he thought I was being lazy. And he thought that he doesn't understand, this level of, literally being blacklisted is essentially what's happened. Because he was taught, as a teenager, you can't live how you want in my house. He thought that the things that he told my mom were really, really detrimental to me. She has no brain activity for herself. And so she'll get like brain activity from kind of random places. And he told her some things that left me without a lot of the resources that I needed. I didn't know I had a crackhead network that he was connected to, or heroin or something. So he was connected to these people that had addiction. I think it was his mother and father or something, that were still like on the street or something. And like, so he did something that like instigated them leaving me literally outside. And I was like, whose reality is this? First of all, how do you not employ someone for this long? And then how do you not employ them, a woman, and expect them to just like to make them come to you for help? And so all these white men tried to make me come to them for help, and I was like, F you. All they had to offer was they were trying to connect me with other males on campus. Like literally, they were like passing me around. I was like, no, that is not how normal people function there that are from where I'm from. And that might be like your white trash answer for things, but I'm not white trash, and that's not my answer. And technically, I'm a student, so leave me the hell alone. And the university found me a job, and they let me like stay in the building. And those men harassed me the entire time. Like if I wouldn't have seen them every night, they would have harassed me every night, and they never stopped. It was like being around people that had special needs, that were trying to be mean. They obviously there was a lot of psychological dysfunction, which was quite surprising. So all of this to say, that was a part of them trying to again traffic me. They had like one of the places that I would go to was like this Chinese restaurant in the middle of the night, like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I would get this urge to go get something to eat, and so like there was a place on campus called Rice Cafe, and the first time I went there, this white trash dude, and I mean he was an older man, and he looked like white trash, like, and that was how he was dressed, and that's how he was scruffy and dirty looking, and he took my order. And the next time I tried to go there, a middle class man walked in, and like literally that was the last time I went in there, because of that middle class guy showing up, I looked and I saw the filth of what was around me, and because I didn't notice it, I was just like food focused until the middle class man came in there, and I waited for his food as well, and I was like, oh my god, this place is disgusting, and a roach crawls across the floor. So I was like, oh, that will be the last time I eat here. So I was like, oh my god. So sometimes you're going to places and being led by people that are like the roaches that you don't see, and then when you see them, you have to have freaking come and hell that way. Oh, sorry. So that's what I had to do. That is where I am now. And what my mom will do is, what she used to do is like drive me into my car. So she would abuse me, and then she'd have like a reason that she'd abuse me, and then she'd feel justified in, like just doing the same thing to me, using different people. Like the reason why we went to Fort Wayne, for example, just a few days ago, was because my mom couldn't make me go off on her. And so she would just do really disgusting, derogatory, mean things to me. And then she would just leave things in odd places that she know would bother me, and just try to instigate me. And I just ignored it, and I just wouldn't say anything. So because she couldn't get a response out of me, we would go to like the store, and she'd get so frustrated. You could see her frustrated because I wouldn't go off or whatever. And I was like, and like we would go to work every morning, and we worked together, and like she would literally try to instigate me to argue. And so I was like, you are sadistically argue, and I saw you do this with my dad, and I was like, I'm not arguing with you like that. And so she got frustrated, and I just started eating like well, I don't know what stopped her from doing and behaving in this manner. And I found out that ice cream was her. So I started having ice cream on the way to work. She stopped eating me, and the abuse stopped. And like we didn't lose the job too long after that. But I was like, it was like a nightmare. So I'm here with her again. It's just me and her, and I, and she's trying to do the same thing again. It's like she buys things that will make her attack me, or she'll eat things that'll make her attack me. And I say that because these specific things consistently get a specific result from her. And so she's just a psycho herself. Okay, so it's a lot to deal with, and the employment part is, getting employed in a city that has mental problems and not yielding to derailing my own future because I have to deal. South Bend's answer for everything is to go help with mental health facilities and stuff. And I'm like, that's not what I got my degree in, and I'm not interested in that. And I'm not the problem. You're the problem. And because you don't know that you're the problem, that's why it's a problem. And so it's not my job to help you, clear up your problem. You had to learn how to quit being psycho and weird and be normal. And not just normal when you want to, normal consistently like a normal person. And, you just don't get that a lot around here. Someone's taught them to be combative and argumentative and uh, and I've seen like things sabotaged so that I'm always in need of someone. One of the books that I was studying with a psychologist before all of this happened was a book on codependency, because my mom was so codependent on me that it was stifling for me to try to grow up. Like I was trying to help my family as much as possible, and it just never seemed enough, and it just grew. And like she like enjoyed it, and I was like, this is unhealthy. Let's disconnect this so that we can, so I can heal. I'm not as stressed out by you, and you can grow up and be the adult that you were before, and we can all kind of mature. That didn't happen, which is fine because those things don't always happen like we hoped they would. But that did not mean that it was impossible for that to be a reality, and so I still hope that can be a reality. But at this point in time, I think that and so, essentially, I've just been trafficked over these years because of my background, and it's not a common background. It's not a common uh, group of opportunities that I had, like educationally, even going to a really competitive undergrad. Literally, these psychopaths and groups are just moving me around from place to place, and so keeping me unemployed. The reason why I'm unemployed is because then there's justification for um, the anger. So there's this always unspoken anger because I'm unemployed. And, even as I'm talking now, when this began, I was like a balls to the walls, applying, calling, faxing my information. And what I found was I was just playing somebody's big dick game. And these were men with dicks that were using my career background to insert their company and try to figure out what they could get out of my presence. One of the companies, was that mental health place for the kids, and they like built a new way to teach for their kids or something. And once they brought that together, they tried to get rid of me, but I stayed longer because I wasn't in the job to be used. I was in the job to make money because I was in grad school. And so I have a population of parasitic psychopaths that I just keep interacting with, and they whittled down my money until what they like to do is just to make you witless and moneyless so that they can use you. And I start the mornings and I feel that I've been able to connect to the police including the state police. There's no help federally. There's no help really um, for victims other than like talking on the phone with a counselor. But that's not really an answer because these men don't have a deterrent. So they just get away with literally trafficking you, and it ends up that you're trafficked. And you know how long that occurs. Like at this point in time, now my traffickers are family members. So do I turn my family members in? You know, essentially, and by law, that has been what I've been for these past few years. I've been with my family, and I went to campus to get away from my family, only to find the white males there on campus wanted to try to do the same thing. Came back here because a black man on that campus, you know, played the intimidation game, and I didn't want to like endanger anything. And meanwhile, the police are like trying to figure out what the hell's going on. I have a godfather who is the son of the police chief, and he's been online to help. And I have a friend that was a lawyer that we were roommates in college, and so I've asked her for help, and none of them have been able to help very much except recently when I went to go visit the state police. But my aunt acted as though she was a psychopath then, so I just got back from there, and that aunt was doing the yelling thing and like instigating and asking questions that in this situation aren't easily answered. And if she didn't listen, and their answer for everything, because I have an education, is, oh, we can't tell you anything, you know everything, which shows another one of those forms of narcissism where you don't really ever, they don't know how to communicate. Everything to them is just reactive as opposed to stopping and listening like an adult. Well, after years of going to see a psychologist to get like, my parents were extreme when I was growing up. Like my dad was like a yelling match king, and my mom was a throwing things and breaking things queen. And so they would make a lot of noise, and they would fight to high heaven. And it was very stressful. So and I felt as though I had to pick up the pieces of some things, and it was odd. And so I eventually chose to go to a psychologist to get perspective on what my needs were, on reality, on what normal was, and how to kind of curtail all the stress that they brought, because I still was a high achieving high school and college student. And so to achieve at that level, I needed to continue to get counseling. And so I did after college as well, during college. And the cult came in right when I got into grad school, which had been a long-term prayer. And I found that, I had been in that codependent relationship with my mom, and I was battling her to make her stop making me codependent. And, in some ways it looks cute, but it's really a drag, because what happens is you lose yourself, and you lose parts of yourself because this person is like feeding on you. And so, like, for example, like Pastor Jeff, like my credit history was pristine, hadn't paid anything late in years, paid off like all of my debt except for my student loans, paid off my car, paid off my mom's car, just a lot of financial planning and good financial planning, and understanding that I had a good level of financial responsibility. And that was one of the things that Pastor Jeff targeted, and they just neatly rolled me up in this web of destructive practices that left me unable to get out of the web, because what these cults do is they'll destroy you, and then they want you to come back to them to be remade. And if you won't come back to them, then they won't do anything. But I happen to have had the police chief, and so I've been pressuring him with the police and the state police, and the police and the state police and the police and the state police to back him off. That is a part of why I have been able to get free On campus, the students would stop the white trash males from moving me around. Remember, I said I would move at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. The white cleaning people, which, they were lower income white males, and admittedly so, okay, oh, well, I didn't finish my degree. I have like 3 kids, so that's why I didn't finish my degree. And I have a chip on my shoulder, but I'm not going to tell you about it. I'll just be an asshole to you because I'm upset that I didn't finish it, and I'm jealous that you're doing what you're doing, but I'll never say that. I'll just be an asshole to you. It's kind of how things happen. Like, even a few years ago, before the cult and campus, I knew they were interacting. I had a cleaning guy do something that I reported because it was like, obviously I was being harassed. So you have people that target you even if you don't even know why. And like, I had things stolen. Like, I had my charger for my phone. They kept touching my phone. And, it was very interesting. And so my mom does some of that weird stuff sometimes too, where she will make sure she thinks that I have things, that she should always touch things. And I think it's rude, but if you're familiar with narcissistic personality disorder and how they act when they want you to go off on something, they will do anything to just be cruel. And if you are dealing with a sadistic mind, like including my mom, you have to recognize they have like a disorder. They are mentally incapable of recognizing what they're doing. So like, they might even get mad at you for having like your own desires. So like, you have your own boundaries, they won't let you have your own boundaries. That's not healthy, and it's also not normal, and it's not human. So they think, like, especially, so I guess some of these black families have raised one another that, anything that I say goes without argument, which would work if you were a animal or automaton. But these days, you as an individual need to do what you as an individual need to do. And I'll tell you this, and this is why. This is why. You can't do what your mother can do, and your mother can't do what you can do. You don't think like your mother can think, and your mother can't think like you think. She's going to tell you to do things that don't work. That generation is going to tell you to do things that are dated, and they have absolutely no idea. I keep getting this, and this is from everybody in that generation. Not one person out of that generation has given me a better answer, other than like a few professors. They will belittle you and make seem as though you are doing something wrong, but it is really their entire generation that is above you and around you, destroying you. There's psychopathy and stuff all around you. Like Pastor Jeff, this church is my mother's generation. So that whole generation, they are very narcissistic. They are very prideful. They are very sadistic. They are very cruel. They are very detrimental, and they are intentional about it. And they are just hard, very cruel, crafty, sneaky. One of the anointings that I have is to catch sneakiness. And so that's why me and Jerry don't get along. Like, I see through his sneakiness, and my mom and my sister don't always see through his sneakiness. And I'm like, God, I watch you and read you, and you're so sneaky. He just doesn't get away with the things that he gets away with with me. And same with my mom. She's sneaky. And so I'm watching her do things, and that's what she did last time, to push me into my car. Now she acts like she's just so sad and so worried about me, but she knows for sure that she's just pissed off because I'm not employed. That's a whole other story, and I might not get employed here, because what happens is that generation, they don't like employing our generation. They will leave you without. Like, my brother is literally homeless. My mom doesn't know where he is. My little sister moved to Texas. She literally doesn't know where she is. I was on campus. She literally didn't know where I was. She literally can't care. and doesn't care. And so, like, you have like this slavery in our family where there's no care for the absence of a child. There's no care for the absence of a person's presence. There's been no care for the absence of an individual's, oh God, an absence for an individual's boundaries, and they don't like boundaries because they want you to do exactly what they want you to do, and it's just, let's see. So I haven't seen a way out of this situation. The police have been very helpful, and right now I'm in a situation where, just like at the Colts had me volunteer to help clean something, and then that volunteering just got extended and extended and extended. And so that's what my mom's trying to do. Oh, well, I have to go on Friday. Can you clean for me on Friday? And I'm like, no, I don't want to clean for you on Friday. And then she buys me something. So as she buys me things, now the inference is, now that I bought you something, now you should feel as though you should do what I want you to do. And that's how my mom manipulates. And that's what narcissists do as well. They manipulate with money. They will make you feel bad about your choices. But let me tell you, if you don't choose, you become nothing. You have to understand, narcissists have no center. They're just really empty and blank people. And they are really good at covering this. So you will just go into nothing and be nothing because of them if you let them lead you. You have to give them boundaries. And they won't understand it, and you'll probably even anger them. But if you don't set a boundary, they'll destroy you. And they are literally, like, by nature, that's just like how they exist. So I'm here with my narcissist, maybe mom or whatever, psycho mom. I know she's had a childhood that was very difficult, and so, I'm trying to be delicate with her because she's been traumatized by Jerry. She's been traumatized by the death of my father. She's been traumatized by the last job that she had. She's been traumatized by the Caucasian people that abused her while I was gone at the cult. She's been traumatized by Jerry. She's been traumatized by not having, her own place, and like losing her husband. And so she's a broken person too. But I mean, she was still psychopathic before my dad died, but she's still a broken person. And so here I am, and here you are as the empathetic person, or empath, having to surf these waves of the damage or the damaged around you, and it's really tiring. So I do spend a lot of time, like, preparing my mind for when she gets home. And, like, she's like, what do you do all day? And I'm like, literally, I spend the majority of the day preparing for her to return. Like, what will I need? What images do I need to have prepared, so that when she gets here, at the very least, I can curtail argument. And I mean, she wants to fight. Like, she wants somebody to physically attack her. And that's why she hit me before. And it's like almost like something has possessed her that wants to get a specific response out of me. And then so she's trying to get that response, which she wants me to hit her. And I'm like, that's not where did you get that from? But she taught Margaret, she like attacked Margaret. Margaret called me, she said, Mama choked me. And I was like, yeah, she choked you when you were a little girl too. And my mom, like, attacks people, like physically attacks people. So what she would do is she and Jerry will push my sister to physically attack. Margaret is more like me. She doesn't have to attack. But because she's mellow, they will just nitpick with her and push her until she attacks them. And then they act like there's something wrong with Margaret. And I know that, but they make it seem as though Margaret they're afraid of her, but they really abused her. Um, and I think finally, this a lot of this has to do with the intimidation of you having a degree. Um, Even with Pastor Jeff, like I came to his ministry with a lot of authority. I didn't know. I didn't know who I was. They used to comment on my car all the time. Gosh, your car is so nice. And I was like, yeah, this is my first, new car. My dad passed. We couldn't afford to keep the family car, and so I got my own car, and I just had been praying for something reliable. So my mom got my old vehicle, which is a minivan, and I got I had the Vitara, and then we couldn't keep the Vitara, and then we turned in the Vitara, and I had to get my own car, and I bought a new car, and it was beautiful, like detail on the inside. So like it was a really it had like wood inlay stuff on the interior in these little spots. So it was a very nice car, like surround sound, little tweeters for my classical music, and oh my gosh, and so I could just listen to my classical music, and you could feel the bass, and I just love my little classical music, and I'd go up and down the highway, and I'd come to Mishawaka playing my music, my classical music or my rock music, whatever, and that pissed him off, and that made him very jealous, and it was something that he couldn't get a hold of, and that was one of the things that they very much tried to destroy when I was dealing with the cleaning people on campus. They tried to destroy my car in very specific ways, and I'll get into that because the other part of this is the degradation of the hatred of pastors, the degradation of the hatred of dark men that don't show themselves. But they do show themselves, and I'll tell you this. Pastors that are in the wrong, that darkness can be turned around by even a policeman. The presence of one policeman can check darkness in a wayward prophet. I was not aware of that, but I had learned that, and it turned off some of the darkness that he was emitting towards me, because I was like, oh my God, what is this, and I had to get the police involved on campus to, in prayer. And international students had to help me from allowing these white males in groups to be spiritually aggressive. And to say that sounds weird until you see it. And what it was really like, the things that I watched and what I'll talk about more, it was like watching an ant farm. And I'm going to explain what I saw. And so what seemed random was like, for me as a biologist, I was watching the movement and the behavior of an ant farm with these white males, and that's exactly how they acted. And they were white males that were figuring out a problem, and their problem was to move me. They wanted to make me go to specific buildings. They wanted to intimidate me to make me leave, and it had to be like the university that stopped them, and then they still didn't stop. Like the university had to stop them again and again and again, and it was like dealing with a wild animal instead of a group of men, and so they acted very much like animals, and it was very creepy. It was very intentional. It was very contrived, and it was very intentional. Like that was what was so surprising. And I'm also making these videos because I'm gonna need them. My mom is gonna go visit Margaret and Jerry, which means when she comes back, she's gonna have a different personality, and Jerry's gonna be all over her. So I have to fight the mental health issues in him coming out of her and clean that schizophrenic behavior that he has off of her, so that she's not quite so abnormal when it comes to communicating with her. So it's just so much to deal with, my life, and it's not even really living, and it's all thanks to joining a Christian organization with a psychopath, Jeff Johns at White Horse Christian Center. These are years that I could be still involved in the making of medical devices. Now these white males have derailed that, and instead of saving lives, I'm playing games with schizophrenic psychopaths that are Christian or not.